We continue now at the top of Daf Pei Aleph Amid Beis in Meseches Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 81b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara had a machlokas amoraim within the opinion of Rav Yossi. Rav Yossi said that let's say you have a neder that has to do with the fact that she's not going to bathe, so that's not considered to be a neder of affliction, and therefore the husband is not allowed to annul the vow for that reason. But the question is it considered to be a neder that has to do with their relationship with one another, and maybe for that reason the husband can annul the vow, and that was a machlokas amoraim. Rav Ada bar Ava says it is considered to be a neder that has to do with their relationship, and therefore he is allowed to annul the vow. But Rav Huna says no, he's not allowed to annul the vow. It does not affect their relationship. And the reason for Rav Huna is Shalom Matzino Shul Shemes Ba'afar Fear, because we don't find that a fox dies in the dirt of its own lair, meaning the same thing over here. Just because she has not bathed, that's not going to affect the relationship between the husband and the wife. He will still have relations with her, regardless of the fact that she has not bathed. And the Gemara continues, Tanya Kavase, the Rav Ada bar Ava. We have a brisa that supports Rav Ada bar Ava's opinion that this is considered something that affects their relationship, and he is allowed to annul the vow. It says, Devarim sheyesh ben inoi nefesh. If it's something that has to do with affliction, so meifar bein beino leveina, bein beino leveina acherim, then he can annul the vow, whether it's going to have to do with the relationship between him and her, or whether it's between her and other people. Like we explained earlier, the idea is, let's say he divorces her, and then she goes ahead and marries another person, so at that point now he can't remarry her. There's no relationship between them, but still the vow is still considered annulled, even though she no longer will have any potential future relationship with him. However, she'ein behen inoi nefesh. Let's say it's something that does not have to do, it's not a neder of affliction, so beino leveina mefer. So if it's going to affect the relationship, if it's between him and her, then he can annul the vow. Beino leveina acherim eino mefer. But if it's between her and others, then he cannot annul the vow. And the Gemara says, Ketzad, how so? The Brisa says, Omra konim peros olai hareza yafer. Let's say she takes a neder, the fruits of the world are upon me, it's prohibited to me, so that he is allowed to annul. That's considered a neder of affliction. He can annul such a vow. Konim she'eni osa lefi abba. Let's say she takes a neder that which she produces, it's going to be prohibited to my father, lefi achichor, to the mouth of your brother, lefi avichor, to your father, lefi achir, to my brother, v'shalo etein teven lefnei behemtecha, or she says, I'm not going to put straw in front of your animal, umayim lefnei bekarcha, I'm not going to put water in front of your cattle. Ein yachol lahafer. All of these are examples of vows that don't affect the relationship, and therefore he's not able to annul the vow. Shelo echol v'shelo efkos. Let's say she says she's not going to paint her eyes, she's not going to put on certain makeup. V'shelo eshamesh mitasi. She says I'm not going to have relations. So there he is allowed to annul the vow. Mishum devarim shebeino leveina, because that's already matters that affect their relationship. Shelo atzia lach mitascha v'shelo emzog lach esakos v'shelo erchatz lach panecha yadecha v'raglecha. Let's say she says, I'm not going to set your bed for you, I'm not going to pour a cup of wine for you, I'm not going to wash your face or your hands or your feet. Ein sarech lahafir. So the Tanna Kama says he doesn't even need to annul the vow. That's something that she's obligated to do, and she can't take a neder not to do that. Rabbi Gamliel says yafer. No, he doesn't annul such a vow. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, lo yachil devaro. The pasuk says the neder is something again that it normally has to be upheld, and therefore he should annul such a vow. The Gemara says, Davar Acher, another explanation of this pasuk, Lo Yachel Devaro Mikan Lechacham She'in Mater Nidrei Atzmo. What the pasuk is telling us is Lo Yachel Devaro means that a Chacham is not allowed to undo his own neder. He's allowed to undo Nedarim for other people, but not for himself. And the Ran explains, Rabbi Gamliel Omer Yafer, Rabbi Gamliel says, in the case where she takes a vow not to do something that really she's obligated to do, so he still should annul such a vow. Alfagav Delo Chayil Nidra. The Ran understands, even though the neder really is not chal, because she's obligated to do these things, nevertheless, sarach lahafer midrabanan. He needs to annul the vow midrabanan. Shelo takil ben nedarim. That way, she won't be lenient with regards to nedarim. V'tavra al bal yachel. In the future, she might then be over on bal yachel. That's why he should be made for it on a drabanan level. V'yo asmachta bi'almahu. The Ran says, bringing this pasuk over here is just an asmachta. Davaracher, another explanation of the pasuk, lo yachel devarim mikan lechacham shein mater nidrei atzmo. Chacham is not allowed to undo his own nedarim. Uchid the darshin, and it says we darshin hu eino mochel. He can't be mochel. Aval acherim mochelin lo, but others can be mochel for him. That's what we learn from this pasuk. And in any case, the Gemara continues and demonstrates how this brisa shows what Rabbi Yossi's opinion is. Man shaminan da'amar shelo echol v'shelo efkos devarim shebeino leveina. Who's the Tana that says that? Let's say she says, I'm not going to paint my eyes, or I'm not going to put on makeup. Who's the one that says that's something that affects their relationship, but it's not considered to be inoi nefesh? Having Rabbi Yossi, that's Rabbi Yossi, because again the Rabbanan in the Mishnah, they say that's considered to be something of inoi nefesh. V'katani, and what does it say in this brisa? It says to Mefer that he's allowed to annul the vow mishum devarim shebeino leveina, because of the fact that it affects their relationship. So you see, that's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. And the Gemara continues, Amar Mar, the master said, V'shelo eshamesh mitasi, if she says she's not going to have relations, so yafir, so the husband should annul that vow, mishum devarim shebeino leveina, because that's something that affects their relationship. And so the Gemara says, Hechi dami, what exactly is the case? What exactly was the neder that she took? If you're going to say that she said Hanoas Tashmishi Olecha, that she said it's prohibited to you, the benefit of the act of relations is prohibited upon you. So Lamali Hafara, so there, what do we even need to have an annulment for? Hamishubedesle, again, this is an example of something where she's meshubet him, it's an obligation she has to him, so the neder is not chal at all. So Ella rather Bomeres Hanoas Tashmishcha Olai. Rather what's happening is she says the pleasure of the act of relations is prohibited to me. She's putting the prohibition upon herself. Rav Kahana, and it follows what Rav Kahana says. Rav Kahana, because Rav Kahana says Hanoas Tashmishi Olecha. Let's say she says again it's going to be prohibited to you. She says to the husband the benefit of the act of relations is prohibited. So Kofa Misham Shasa. So in that case he can force her. The neder is not chal, and they have relations. But Hanoas Tashmishcha Olai. But let's say she makes the prohibition upon herself. She says the pleasure of the act of relations is prohibited to me. So then Yafir, then he annuls the vow. She'ein ma'achilin es ha'adam davar ha'asr lo, because we don't feed something to somebody that's prohibited to him. Here also, this act of relations would be prohibited to her, so he has to annul the vow first. And the Gemara continues, Man Tana Hadatanya, who's the Tana of the following brisa? Devarim hamutarim, let's say you have something which really is mutter, it's permissible. But there are people who they have a custom to make it prohibited, they don't do that. So in such a case, you shouldn't act in front of them as if the thing is mutter, since to them it's really asr kadei levadlam, because otherwise, again, it's going to nullify it in front of them. And why is that the case? Mishum shenemar lo yachil devaro, because the pasuk says lo yachil devaro, so it's sort of like a neder over here. These people, they act as if this is prohibited. It's kind of like a neder, kind of is prohibited for them, and therefore you shouldn't act in front of them as if it is mutter. And so the Gemara continues over here with the Brisa Davar Acher, another explanation of Lo Yachel Devaro, like we said earlier. Lo Yachel Devaro, what does it mean, Lo Yachel Devaro? Mikan l'Talmud Chacham shein mefer nidrei atzma. It means that a Talmud Chacham, he can't annul his own vows. Lo Yachel Devaro, he has to keep the vow. Only someone else can annul it for him. In any case, the Gemara says, so who's the author of this Brisa money? Who is it? Rabban Gamliel. Here it's Rabban Gamliel. The idea over here is that if people conduct themselves as if something is usher, so you have to act like it's usher. So that's why Rabban Gamliel said earlier above as well, he said, let's say you have a situation where she takes a neder, and really the neder is not chal. Really it's something that she has to do for him, but still it's something that has a quasi-status of a neder, and therefore he should annul it. That's the same as this Brisa. That's what Rabban Gamliel said earlier. And the Gemara continues, Boy minei Rava me Rav Nachman. Rav asked Rav Nachman the following question: Tashmish hamita l'Rabbanan inoi nefeshu o devarim shebeino leveina. When it comes to the act of relations, according to the Rabbanan's opinion, they're the ones who say, let's say by bathing, that's considered to be an affliction, that's considered to be a neder that has to do with inoi nefesh. So what about when it comes to the act of relations, according to the Rabbanan? Is that a neder of inoi nefesh, or is that something that has to do with their relationship? Amar Lei said to him, Tani Sua, we learned the answer, and this is from a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Unatula ani min haYehudim. Let's say a woman says that she's prohibited from the Jews. The Mefarash over here says, Homeres natula ani min haYehudim, muderes ani mehem mitashmish, shelo yenesh shum Yehudi mimena. She says, no Jewish person should benefit in terms of the act of relations from me. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Beis Amud Aleph.